Ok? Muito bem. Então, agora entramos nessa dimensão nossa, dessa intersecção da inteligência artificial com a sustentabilidade.
Now, before I hand over to our first keynote speaker of this first panel,
como foi nossa semana aqui agora, né? A gente teve encontro multilateral.
We had throughout the week a multilateral meeting addressed by the UK, where NIC.br and CGI.br were part of, where we had invited researchers from the UK
e também nossos aqui, né, dos centros de pesquisa brasileiros.
And our researchers from our research national centers. And we have here representatives from the FDCO, and one of the researchers will be part of this panel, and that has inspired us so much to address such a relevant topic. And with that, I would like to hand over to Paulo Nobre.
Paulo Nobre vai fazer a palestra inaugural aqui sobre...
Who will be responsible for this opening talk. He is a teacher in climate for the spatial research centers. He's got a master's degree by the Maryland University, and he's got a postdoc from Columbia University. He searches for forests, oceans in forecasting climate changes. And recently, he's part of an AI project on precision climate services. Thank you, Tuca. First of all, let me thank NIC.br and CGI.br for the invitation and opportunity. And to address two perspectives, one that is quite controversial and the other which seems as an opportunity. Our goal here today is to address opportunities behind AI, especially in face of a critical time that mankind is experiencing. Not because AI will replace people, and people are so much afraid of that. And, you know, it's amazing that you ask a question and you get an answer back from a device. And you have all tried to ask a question in your field of expertise, and you laugh about the answer, which is so primary, elementary, that any adolescent would be able to answer. However, the tool becomes more developed after its use, or with its use, better saying. And listening to you talking about the calculation metrics, calculation ruler, and I remember that when I was at school, I learned how to make my calculations with that ruler, and then I replaced that with electronic calculators, and now I am a supercomputer user. And what are we experiencing right now? We are living a very singular time. Climate change is a hot topic, and my role here today is to make a link and to show you how climate changes and artificial intelligence were made one to another. And by that I mean climate changes pressures us to set actions, and AI gives us some amazing possibilities where we'll be able to automate, to access, monitor, and foresee climate events. I have here some slides to address climate changes, the climate extremes, and how AI becomes a key tool. A key tool for that. In January 2026, the United Nations has disclosed a report called the Global Hydric Failure. Why would UN publish a report about that global hydric failure? Water failure is not emergency, it's not crisis. The word failure used in this report raises an alert. Failure is a synonym for death. Failure of internal organs, failure of a company. And as to hydric failure, we have to talk about global emergency. The grandma is not doing really well, and I have to tell my family that she died. And then we say, uncle, our grandma went up to the roof. And when UN published that report on global hydric failure, they were trying to say that the grammar went up to the roof. And who is here representing the grammar? The climate. And today we still use the word climate emergency, but I may guarantee that this word no longer applies. Emergency is far away behind. Our main challenge is to manage and deal with the consequences of climate changes, which are so extreme in our climate, and those who will come after us, and even ourselves, will still be able to prosper. And to close my introduction, let me just add something else. Humans, they come from humus, which means earth, soil, fertility in Latin. And it's high time we ask ourselves, which is our human role within this huge opportunity and challenges, such as AI and climate changes.
Então, deixa eu primeiro iniciar como se fosse uma sala de aula e dizer que existe uma diferença entre
There is a difference between climate variability and climate changes. Variability is what we experience, different weathers in the morning, afternoon, and evening, autumn, spring, winter, and summer, which are climate oscillations that takes place naturally. But there is something else, which is climate change. Whenever there is an external factor which acts over the climate with different statistics, where you no longer have chilly nights or the cold fronts, they are very fast, and there is a heat wave which comes right after that. We have too much rain, 600 millimeters of rain in the São Paulo north coast, which went far beyond what we usually expect in terms of rain volume. Climate changes informs that we have, things are different today than it used to be. And the discussion is, are we going to have a new climate, the new normal, where temperature average used to be 27 and now it becomes 29, 30, or 32? Or if we have a runaway climate, which is a climate that goes beyond that normality concept, which no longer exists. With this new normal, where we still have a event distribution with a variability average, if we change that, we have a higher frequency of what before used to be called extreme events, floods or dry seasons. And we have to forecast and to get prepared for that, being able to mitigate what we have to do to avoid such a change in the normal distribution, another adaptation, and I'm going to deal with that soon. Let me ask to our participants here, who before 2024 would ever expect that one day we would be able to cross the Black River walking? For those who have been to Amazon, the Negro River or the Solimões River, they are wide rivers. We would never imagine to be able to walk along a wide river like that. Our imagination for external events is being challenged by our reality. What is taking place right now are not just numeric forecasts that people are trying to set as being uncertainties. No, or maybe the floods that we had down south in this country, a number of events that took place that we would never expect and which led to that disaster due to a very heavy rain season.
So I would like to make a small overview of the global panorama, and then we will come back to Brazil and what it is that we can do. The Paris Agreement, 2001. There was a global effort for the average global temperature did not go beyond 1.5 for industrial production. And that would mean a commitment of different countries to reduce green gas emissions, because it clearly shows that the accumulation of greenhouse gas emissions leads to this, and so let's reduce the emission of these gases. In 2024, for 300 days, we had global average temperatures that were higher than 1.5. It doesn't mean that the Paris Agreement has expired. It means that for many years, this amount was surpassed. But there are signs that there is an imminent crisis. Let's imagine that our body temperature is 35, 5.4. So that means something is not well in your body, and that's why and that's what this 1.5 increase causes. It's essential that we understand this, because miscommunication will say, well, 1.5, is that really too much? But what happens is that as the average temperature of the planet goes up, the atmosphere energy required, and that's why when we have prolonged heat waves, that has a significant impact. And we have an increase in the risk of these events. The reach is global. And it's difficult for us to understand this concept of global and average temperature of the planet. But a global reach means that these events are happening and will continue to happen. The social infrastructure where we grow up in, and what we see in books is affected, and you've probably seen in newspapers that in Spain this year or last year, people were throwing rocks at the king. So what does that mean? It means that the king is no longer king, because there is no longer a hope that the system will promote safety to my family. And so we have the global increase and also climate justice, which is another important fact. As we have these climate events, the populations living in the periphery of cities and of economy are the first to be affected significantly. So we are facing a rupture in the way that the planet works with such a magnitude that every class will be affected, especially those who cannot have air conditioning at home or a health plan and live in high-risk regions. And then you will say, well, but is it that serious? Well, we have to consider how we can react to this, and there are three elements that I would like us to analyze. So what are the time expectations for us to mitigate and avoid this? I can say the following. We do not have any more time to avoid them. We've gone beyond the limit where events start happening more and more frequently. The expected emission decrease up to 2030, so that we do not reach 1.5, because we've already reached that, or 250 as the year for the net emissions to be equal to zero. What does it mean? It means everything issued minus everything that is absorbed by the oceans and biosphere. But what is not written here is that our most heated oceans absorb less carbon. Our forests in water stress conditions also absorb less carbon. And the permafrost, the ice which is frozen in the Arctic and Siberia, is releasing methane increasingly. So these are two aspects which are considered as our expectation of time to act upon have been surpassed. And the last one, which we can see there, has one investment, and we have investment in climate safety, reforestation capacity, building of our children, so that they can use their brains to calculate things automatically or on their own. And this year, I will be celebrating my 70th birthday. And it's the first time I celebrate my 70th, and it will always be a first one. So I hope that by the end of the lecture, I will be able to close with the AI issue. But let me talk a little bit more about the severity of this program. Number one, and this figure has been extensively mentioned. It shows our growth rate until 25, and you can see that the last three bars, they go beyond 1.5. But this figure does not show us this, that the planet heat is not linear. It's not something that grows little by little every year. The highest fear of the international community is the runaway, an increase greater than the previous increase, and it becomes exponential. It never comes back. When we look at this figure, we can see here in the x-axis, and each one of these curves include the mean global temperature increase, and before 2015, all of them were 1 degree or less. But from 2015 to 22, we started having another range. In 23, 24, and 25, we had another increase. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I want to have enough time to talk about AI, but we had a decrease in the pollution of particulate matter, especially when related to fuel. And so the light that was reflected in the past no longer reflects, and the low waves are still a byproduct of forests. They generate a chemical compound, and they act as shadows. They reflect sunlight and issues high temperature. Those 3 years outside is largely due to the increase of the ocean temperature, and that is forever. Oceans do not cool down. The only way the oceans cool down is on the surface, but it's like a pan heating in the oven. If you do not turn the oven off, in other words, the sun, and then there are some crazy ideas that worry me about making changes to the atmosphere. And that is on top of other changes. That means that temperatures will continue to grow. And so much so that if you look at this figure here, we have the months of the year. Each one of these lines represent the average temperature of the planet for every year. And here we have the temperature. And you can see that for 2026, we have already gone beyond 24, 3 and 24. We had El Nino, and then people would say that that was because of El Nino. We have another El Nino coming our way. And so it is possible that in 26, we will break previous records, and that will happen in 27, 28. And then we'll have a super El Nino. And what is it? You can see it in the figure. There is a region in the Pacific where we calculated the anomalies for surface temperature. And according to the temperature of the region, we classify whether El Nino is strong or moderate. When it reaches 2 degrees, we will have a very strong El Nino. In this model developed here in Brazil, we have 4 to 5 degrees, and that has to change things. We have different agencies that are trying to prepare for this. There is an aspect, and it means the following. This is just another figure. This is the El Nino temperature and the average ocean temperature. This means that we have more heated oceans. And here the El Nino. This is 23. We can see the difference with the other years, but the ocean is always more heated. It shows the model. And has the model been able to anticipate what was going to happen? Yes. And in red, I will give you an award if you guess. It is El Nino this year. So when we look at this figure, we see that either the model is wrong or there is something really different going on. We can see that this temperature will go to 39 or 40. And what do we do about this? Well, I will introduce it to you. This is an anticipation 1 year ahead of time. Here we can see the rainfall on the left side, and this was done in July. We calculate deviations. This is the Amazon region. We have rainfall that is higher than the average, and on the right side, the temperature. And this model, can it anticipate a year ahead of time? This is a figure I presented at COP30.
Aqui é a previsão que nós fizemos em novembro de 2023 para o ano de 2024.
And then we have 2008, and we can see what was predicted and observed, or what was actual. So the model works, so we can be prepared for this area with an extreme period. But let me show you what would happen if we lost the Amazon forest without taking into account the exponential temperature increase, talking only about the increase. Here in the Amazon, we will have an increase of 10 to 15 degrees. It means that our bodies will not be able to deal with it. And then we have the Amazon and the effect of climate change. And then the Amazon would collapse. This is almost like a terror movie. Now, look at our agricultural power. It's going down the drain. We can see that irrigation will work as long as we have underground water, but it will also disappear. So what can we do about it? Should we avoid and adapt? Mitigation is an attempt to reducing the damage. Adaptation is how we can reduce the impact, prepare systems, cities, and people for the effects that are already going on. When we have a ship sinking, what we can do is try to get help to survive. What is the AI potential? There are ways to deal with the heat, and there are other concepts that we can use. If we have a car that has a very powerful engine and uses a lot of gas with central data. But there is another situation where the efficiency is 90%.
Deixa eu lhes contar da minha experiência.
So let me tell you a little bit about my experience in the climate and how AI has supported us to anticipate what is going to happen next year.
Do uso da IA para observação. Observação da Terra é fundamental. Monitoramento você precisa fazer para poder prever.
Monitoring, you have to do it so that you can anticipate.
Coleta de dados, SCD. Olha, orgulho nacional é o artefato feito pelo homem.
We have artifacts made by man.
Ainda funcionando. Foi lançado em 92.
This was launched in 92 and is still operating. But the different satellites use a principle that comes from the analogic days. We have the atmosphere, different wavelengths. The image is transferred here, and then we process. What is AI changing? We have sensors with intelligence on board, and you no longer transmit the whole image. You transmit the essence of what was learned from that image. Modeling means using AI to find out where the model is going to make a mistake, and use AI so that you can learn from these errors. Making an error with anticipation is no longer a problem. We've learned over time under what conditions the model will cause a specific error. Is it from the east or west, or do we have an El Niño or a La Niña? So the adjustment is no longer gross, as we had with statistics in the past years. And then we also have anticipation according to different sets. And the alert. So there is a network that produces accurate information. We are now better prepared to deal with the event, not only for this coming El Niño. The super El Niños are here to stay because of the average global temperature. This is our plan for the next 10, 20, 50 years.
Inadiável terminação da incineração da nossa.
And we have to prepare our children at school to learn math, to be curious, learn science, geography, history. And then there's a decision to be made. When this network is in place and operating, we can prepare for the impact. We can be prepared for the long run and also be motivated to migrate to a carbon-free economy. The other thing is, how do we use AI in modeling? We correct biases and downscaling. Our models, common models, usually use 20 kilometers by 2 kilometers. With AI, we can decrease, we can downscale some data which are difficult to access, and I'm not going to discuss this issue here, but our researchers can access data to instruct our models in special or specific models with specific language for the climate. Today, we understand that there's no silver bullet. AI does not replace physical modeling, it complements it. And then we have a product, and here we have the anchor institutions, our institutional partners, including universities, among others, to work with this system. So we can predict changes 1 year ahead of time. AI also helps us fill in the gaps with quality data, which are mandatory. But what can we do in regions where a sensor is not available? We can increase the density of smart sensors, which is part of these projects. And we also use AI to obtain data. This changes when we have algorithms that can infer these calculations. Low-cost networks with technology manufactured here in Brazil. It's extraordinary. You will probably remember of Itaipu in the 70s. Well, we're now going through a new revolution phase with low-cost networks. And so when we have this rupture, you have a scientist and somebody who does not understand about what is being discussed. Scientists know what they're saying. They have a responsibility. But the other part, if can say anything, but can control the narrative. It's not possible to consider with a 100% confidence that next event is caused by climate change. And then they claim that there's no such thing as climate change. This is a narrative, but with AI, we can check data and causes. So scientists, and I include myself among them, do not have to dispute what is true or not. AI is an extraordinary tool on one hand, but it also generates information, text that could be true. AI will even apologize for that. I will tell AI, you're saying this, but my paper from 19 something, from years ago says the contrary, and AI will immediately agree with me. So it has to be used carefully because it can be dangerous. It is a multiplier of capacity, but not a silver bullet. There are data biases which equal to decision biases. It does not replace science and basic research. We should develop specific algorithms that speak Portuguese, understand El Niño, and will understand the possibility of having a flood in Belo Horizonte or in the south or in the north. AI, therefore, does not replace us, and it requires governance. Governance is our capacity to develop hardware, software, and programs that are relevant for our society. And there's something else which is not very common here in Brazil, which has to do with playing a role of a leader, global leader. We had a group of nations working for the climate. We created a working group with research institutes, schools, families. This working group is on behalf of us humans. I will leave you with 3 basic ideas from this conversation.
First, we don't have enough time. We don't have lots of time to avoid it, but rather short time to develop our armamento. For those who are not in this room today, who are, crossing next street or who are riding the underground, we have the so-called life dignity. And Amazon and Rio Grande do Sul state, they are just 2 examples of that. AI is an amazing multiplier, and I am experiencing that at my services. And the pathway is of collaboration. We have to work jointly. We have to have a community effort and to surpass the bubble of our labs. I was in Beijing at a FAPASP meeting with a peer from the University of São Paulo who was showing the advancements on 2nd generation pulp and paper. And then I told him, you know that there is intelligent life outside my lab. And then I got very, very surprised with all the findings. And now it's high time that we work jointly, where we see a number of opportunities. We keep talking about investments, but we will not lack of investments for such a large action to give back to the society who paid for our abilities. Possibility to live on a climate which we are not even be able to think about it, thanks to national and international collaboration. Climate change is a way to exchange our colony approach, where everyone will collaborate to new solutions. So I urge you to look after our children. Organizing science contests, sending our people, our children to the Amazon region and bringing them down south. And thank you all for being here. I don't know if you were told that, there is some payment to be done. No, that's a spoiler. The payment is your involvement as subject, as a researcher with this main challenge and opportunity. Thank you.
Obrigado, professor.
Thank you, Professor. Questions?
Bom, acho que o professor Paulo já endereçou.
Professor Paulo has addressed during his talk all topics of this of today's agenda: challenges, opportunities, and all of that will be addressed during our third and fourth panel.
Na questão de formação. Quanto ao pagamento que o professor comentou, não é.
As to payments, it's not just at the entrance, it's on the way out. No one will be able to leave the premises without paying for it. I'm joking. I will now introduce our next panel.
Só o pessoal técnico lá. Para que me derem ok, abrimos o próximo painel.